Alright, so as per usual, I'm going to point out that this is a series and that there are parts for the other games in the Smash series. And right now I will show the full roster if you only care about that. But I'm of course going to break down my thoughts on why all of the different decisions for the roster were made. So Smash 4's roster was 12 spots higher than Brawl's. And considering I'm going for a bring everyone back whenever you can, unless there's an extreme circumstance like there was with the rare Microsoft buyout. So that's not going to change, and we're not going to worry about Echo slots either, just because obviously Smash 4 brought in a couple, but thanks to everyone always being here, we already had a couple who are veterans who would fill in these couple slots. Now, obviously, a lot through this whole thing, I've given the benefit of the doubt, and this time I'm actually not going to go through with it with one thing, and that being our third-party slots. There were 3 total, but there was 2 new companies, but I feel like you can make the argument that there could be 4 total and still bringing in 2 companies, considering with trophies and such, you had Ubisoft and Rayman, and I believe Commander Video had a trophy in Smash 4 as well. Wonderful 101 stuff was in base game, I think, too. But honestly, I didn't really find that extra third-party slot to be a necessity. I feel like the roster came together fine without it. So the one third-party slot we're going to get is for Ryu Hayabusa from Ninja Gaiden. Or Gaiden. Once again, I think I've mentioned before, if not, one thing that I like to do is I like to try to represent as many things as possible, and I really like characters like Ryu who could represent multiple things. Obviously, he's probably most well known as the protagonist of the Ninja Gaiden series, which had a great set of NES games, although I wasn't personally able to get into them, but they did have a pretty good rebooted trilogy as well. But Ryu Hayabusa has actually appeared as a major character in the Dead or Alive series as well, so you're representing 2 series with 1 character. A very historic character. I've personally enjoyed the mainline Dead or Alive games, and I think this makes sense. Plus, it also kind of helps that it was mentioned in Smash 4 in particular that they were kind of looking for another ninja character when we got Greninja. Obviously, we don't even have one in this roster, so that will sort of scratch that itch and fix that. Once again, when it comes to adding characters to the roster from pre-existing series, I kind of like to go the approach of, is there a game that I really liked in between the last Smash that would help me, justify giving a little extra attention to the series again? So obviously there's probably multiple Mario games in between the last 2 Smashes that were really good. And at this point, it's kind of weird that Yoshi and Peach aren't here. So we're going to go with those 2 characters for that series. I feel like, too, it is decent timing, I think. I don't remember when Super Princess Peach came out, but I feel like that was sort of at the end of Brawl, if it was out before. I feel like seeing Peach playable there, and I think 3D World was out before Smash 4, so seeing her playable in that, and just some other games other than spin-offs kind of helps her case a bit. And then even with Yoshi, I feel like Yoshi's Island DS, sort of similar situation, came out, I think, around the same time as Super Princess Peach. I could be wrong, but I feel like leading up to that point, Yoshi series was kind of, I don't know, not seeing a lot of mainline games in that, since Yoshi's Story on N64. But now you got the DS game, you have New Yoshi's Island on 3DS, you have Woolly World coming out, which came out after Smash 4, but it still got a stage, so obviously they knew it was coming, so timing wound up also just seeming to fit well with both those characters. Zelda had Skyward Sword. We got all the Triforce wielders now, so I'm going to go with another character. I'm going to go with Tingle. I guess this is kind of an out there pick, but I wouldn't say he's entirely unexpected. I feel like people recognize him for, having a couple independent spin-off games, and also for being one of the few reoccurring characters in Zelda. And I think he may have came out for Hyrule Warriors around this time too. So I think there's some fun potential and a reason for him to be the next choice. Kirby, I think at this point too, it feels weird to not have Meta Knight here. And I really enjoyed Epic Yarn, so that came out in between too. So it fits. Once again, gotta throw in a Fire Emblem character. I mean, Awakening brought Fire Emblem to a whole new level. And personally, I would have went with Robin, but since we already had Micaiah sort of fill that mage-ish role for the series, I've decided to go with Tiki, one of the few recurring characters in that series. I'm particularly going to go with her Awakening counterpart. Could be a little difficult to come up with a moveset, considering she's not really like Corrin and only transferring parts of her body to a dragon. With her, it seems to be all or nothing from what I've seen. But I think you could still find a way to make it work with a variety of things. And I, of course, like the connection to not just Awakening, but also the original Fire Emblem game that she provides as well, even though that's already represented through Marth. Animal Crossing New Leaf was a great game, so I feel like Animal Crossing is popular enough to get a second rep too. I decided to go with KK Slider for a similar reason that I went with Resetti, as in, I feel like you could use some different Animal Crossing mechanics now with KK, but you can also add rhythm and music-based attacks along with it to fully flesh things out and make it even more unique from our other Animal Crossing rep, who took a different direction with that. Our last existing series that I decided to give a newcomer to is for our surprise out of left field pick. I mean, I completely agree with Wii Fit Trainer. That was really creative and fun. The only difference I would have had was I wouldn't have revealed her before launch. She would have been a secret and you wouldn't have found out until you were playing the game. Ideally. I feel like leaks probably still would have happened, and maybe instead of debating Shulk's face, we would have been debating Wii Fit Trainers. That still leaves us with 4 newcomer slots, and I've decided to give them all to new franchises from Nintendo. So, Pikmin, I was on the fence about including Pikmin in the last Smash, and really all of these series were under consideration, well, except for one. But I feel like now at this point, especially with Pikmin, you had a couple really good GameCube games, but then the series kind of went in the background for a while, but it made a good comeback on Wii U with Pikmin 3, so I feel like Olimar is the choice, being the protagonist of the first 2 games, the most in the series right now. Probably still the most recognizable too, especially since Pikmin 3 had multiple playable characters as opposed to Olimar, who was in both, and I know 2 had multiple characters, but he may have been the only one in 1. I haven't played 1 yet, so don't quote me on that. The other 2 series I considered last time around are Chibi-Robo and Custom Robo. I really enjoyed playing the Chibi-Robo games that I've played. I can definitely see some potential in this series. I think Chibi-Robo is a iconic, fun character with some potential, and I don't really have more to add to that. I kind of hate the way the series is, though. It had that really awesome GameCube game, but then the rest of the games were kind of meh. I guess the series is at least getting some attention at this time, even if it isn't going over too well. As for Custom Robo, we're going to go with Ray, but I don't know. I haven't actually played Custom Robo yet, but from what I've seen, I think it's a bigger series than people really realize. It has, I think people know of the GameCube game, and maybe they know of the DS game, because that was the only other one to go international. But there was also a GBA game and 2 N64 games. And just looking at the series overall, I'm excited to try it out when I get to it on my backlog. Being a RPG mech arena fighter, I think that sounds like a really fun combination, and maybe the execution didn't go over as well as it could have, but I think I would definitely want to give it a spot. Like, this is sort of my, like how Smash itself gave attention to Fire Emblem and Xenoblade when they weren't as popular. This is one I would shine my spotlight on and see if you can get it some attention, maybe some eyes who can fully realize what the series can offer. As for the final newcomer, I'm going to go with Pit, obviously. I didn't really consider him at Brawl, but with the series having a really successful revival on 3DS and also being developed by the same people making Smash, just made too much sense to include him. As for the DLC, without any first-party veterans to return, I've decided to give the first 3 slots of DLC to new echoes. The first 2, like I've done before, I like finding loose yet kind of connected picks. So for Tingle, given that some of his, or maybe all of them, I'm not really sure, spin-offs were Balloon Fight-ish games, I'm going to have Balloon Fighter as a Tingle echo. Another echo I have too, this one's probably a little more of a stretch, is King Hippo from Punch-Out for Donkey Kong. I imagine most movesets would be pretty equivalent to what they are in Smash right now. I know I have seen some debate on Donkey Kong's moveset in particular, whether he can have, barrel throwing attacks and whatnot. But the way it stands now, it's mainly a melee-based moveset, which I think could work for a Punch-Out character. Plus, Donkey Kong appeared as a secret boss in the Wii Punch-Out game. Obviously, King Hippo has a bit of a gut, but other than that, he's a similar shape, I guess. Or maybe not shape, because his arms aren't as long either, but a similar overall size, and I guess it's kind of like the Gooey situation to where the moveset could work, but I feel like hitboxes and the overall model are a bit different, but I'm willing to do that. I know Smash itself didn't necessarily go that far with it. The last echo I had is Andy from Advance Wars. As a Rachel echo, I think it makes sense. Even though I liked the idea for Sammy better. Or Rachel, sorry. Like I said, I was going back and forth between those two. Andy is sort of the poster boy of the franchise, the most recognizable character, so it makes sense to fit him in now in this role. That leaves us with 4 spots, 1 first party, 3 third party, and the first third party was from a existing company in Smash. When it comes to the existing companies we have, I mean, I don't have really any ideas, at least right now, that I really like for Activision or Koei Tecmo, but Sega has some great options. Definitely want to give honorable mentions to Jet Set Radio, Knights, Virtua Fighter. Those were considerations as well. I really enjoy all those games. And this is one of the characters I said a year ago wouldn't have even been on my radar, but I've been getting into the Yakuza games, now known as Like a Dragon, and I think, I don't know, I would just want Majima in Smash. Kind of an out there pick, but Yakuza 1 and 2 HD was available on Wii U, where the Yakuza games are pretty serious. They could get pretty wacky too, and that's sort of the reason why I picked Majima over Kiryu, because where Kiryu is the main character, per se, I feel like Majima, aesthetically and personality, could be a little more off the wall and would sort of fit a bit better in the style of Smash, if that makes any sense. After that, we obviously got Cloud, which was pretty big. But I'm going to go with something equally... Well, I guess Majima is also pretty out there, but I'm going to go with Commander Shephard from Mass Effect. Just because I really like Mass Effect. I think the third one came out on Wii U. There is definitely some potential in the moveset. I did consider other characters. I mean, I guess if this was a truly biased roster, overall I would go with Tali, but even I have to admit, I feel like it would be weird for her to get in and not Shephard. Like, I can kind of see Majima as, a fan favorite, but when you have, Shephard, Liara, and Garrus, with Garrus seeming to be a little more popular than Tali, than from what I can see, and then you have Liara, who obviously I don't know if it would have been announced at this point, but they had that teaser for the next Mass Effect with her being the only thing we really know at this point. And I guess Shephard works a little better too, because a lot of these other characters would be more focused on one area, where Shephard can be built to represent, multiple of the expertise of the different characters and make a little more sense with it. As for our first party character, I'm still going to go with Fire Emblem. I mean, like I said, if Smash itself had a bias towards Fire Emblem, that would not change with me making these decisions, but I would have gone with Azura instead of Corrin. I just feel like Azura, once again, having a dancing moveset with water abilities and a lance. Like, the Corrin idea was kind of fun too, but I feel like this one's a little more unique. Did people like Azura? Like, I know a lot of people didn't like Corrin as much. I liked Azura better than Corrin. I don't know how general fans feel about that. But yeah, our last third-party slot. Now, this was kind of a weird one because you were introducing Platinum games, but I think Sega also has a stake in Bayonetta, so it's kind of a new company character, but kind of not. And actually, Platinum was already in with Wonderful 101 stuff. But the way I went about it was, okay, Bandai Namco probably still co-developing. They've got some characters that could be considered. And the one I went with, similar to Ryu Hayabusa, sorry, I went with Yoshimitsu to represent both Tekken and Soul Calibur. I like both series. I think I like Soul Calibur a little more. I feel like the gameplay is better there, but I think the story's better in Tekken. But I feel like gameplay is a bigger deal for a video game. But they're both really good. This is a perfect way to get them both in. Yoshimitsu, popular, recognizable character, has some pretty wacky attacks, which could be fun. I don't know, I guess I can picture him using his Tekken 3 and Tekken 6 designs, because those were the ones, because I think they were used in the tag tournaments that came out after, and I think Street Fighter Cross Tekken also used his design from 3, so considering those are the recurring ones and they change every time, I feel like those would be the two that would make it into Smash. Probably his third iteration as from Tekken as the default, and then 6 as an alt. But yeah, we got one game to go now, so everyone will be here. We'll finally say, or I guess I should say, we will be welcoming back our rare characters and have a lot of third-party stuff too, and digging deeper into the Nintendo. So there's that.